Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake ELLENBOGEN, and today we are starting a new series where I'm going to give you my top players from a certain position. Today we're starting off with quarterback, and I'm going to give you a reason, or rather reasons, for why the Rams would draft the player, and I'm going to give you reasons why the Rams wouldn't draft the player. So, full disclosure, Cam Ward did not make this list, not because he's not good enough. It's because he's going number one overall, and it's the worst kept secret ever. And he won't be there for the Rams to select. So let's dive into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. So let's dive into it. Let's start off with number one. We're not going to start off at the bottom. We'll start off at the top because I feel like it. Number one. Outside of Cam Ward, my number one quarterback would be Shedeur Sanders. So why would the Rams draft him? This is a guy that has great mechanics. Great mechanics, okay? He has great timing. He's an anticipatory thrower. He has a life around football. Deion Sanders, the bloodline is there. This is a guy that went from Jackson State and played his college ball there, then went to Colorado and only got better. He has proven he's up for the challenge. He has the swagger that teammates can thrive off of. He's got top-tier toughness, a clutch gene that is evident and not I would just say it's not very common, right? Clutch genes are not common in quarterbacks coming out of college. Those guys, you've always heard the term, the cream rises to the top. Well, there you go. Not everybody has the clutch gene. Shedeur Sanders does. So I think it's clear he can be a franchise quarterback, but here's the deal. Here's why the Rams wouldn't draft Shedeur Sanders. First off, being he might not be there when they get a chance to pick him, right? He might not be there at 26. There's a lot of things that went down since I said that Shedeur Sanders could be an option. Now we know Derek Carr might not even play the rest of the year. Whether that was already known by the Saints or not, we'll never know, but I would imagine he ends up with the Saints at number 9 overall, or the Saints put some pressure and the Giants end up biting the bullet and taking him at 3rd, or the Browns take him at 2nd. Either way, there's a really good chance he's not going to be available at 26, and the Rams would probably have to trade up. And to be honest with you, as much as I like Shedeur Sanders, 26 is already pushing it for me. Trading up, I would not really be for. If he ended up as a Ram, of course, I'd be happy he's a Ram, but that's a pretty big price to pay. So why else would the Rams not draft him? Well, I think also he holds on the ball way too long. I think that's something that Sean McVay, look, the next quarterback he has is likely going to be a rookie. And the hope is that they sit long enough behind Matthew Stafford. And if that's the case, he's going to be going back to the Jared Goff territory where he did get frustrated. He is going to have to be more of a teacher than just kind of that peer-to-peer relationship he has with Matthew Stafford. That's something to keep in mind. So you want to, of course, minimize the impact of that, minimize the rookie mistakes. And Shedeur Sanders does hold on the ball way too long, which puts a lot of strain on an offensive line. He doesn't have any elite traits, doesn't have elite arm strength, doesn't have great arm. He has good arm strength. He doesn't have great arm strength. There are questions about his attitude fitting in Los Angeles. He's a big personality. Would that be the best spot for him? He's almost too NFL ready, in my opinion, to be the next guy up. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this as well, is that when you draft a guy like this, see, Jordan Love, when the Packers drafted him, there was no push to put him over Aaron Rodgers. There were a lot of people that felt like he wasn't a first-round pick. There were people that thought he was raw and he'd need years, which he did, and it's worked out. But with Shedeur Sanders, I'm pretty confident if the Browns picked him, he could start tomorrow for them and actually be decent. And I think he'd actually work well with Kevin Stefanski. And if you went with Brian Dable and the Giants, I think he could start. Now, they wouldn't need him to because they have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. But I do believe that Shedeur Sanders could start for a few teams in this league day one. That said, knowing he's that close to being ready or already being ready, it does put some unnecessary and unneeded pressure in a Super Bowl season, potentially 2 Super Bowl seasons, where the fans, the media, Matthew Stafford has a bad game or whatever, and now all of a sudden the pressure's on. Shedeur Sanders, we know he can play. Maybe we'll play him. That's when you open up Pandora's box. Plus, you could see the father, Deion Sanders, who's a very bright personality as well, getting involved. So that might not be the best fit. And I could really see that being a big reason why they didn't draft him if he was there at 26. Because I do think it's nothing against him, but I feel like he's almost too ready, where if he was going to sit 2 years, he might not want to be there. He might demand a trade. I mean, like I said, big personality, right? So who knows? That's what I have for Shedeur Sanders. Number 2 on my board after, of course, Cam Ward is not there. Number 2 is Jalen Milroe. I have him as my 3rd overall quarterback in this draft, and I will have no regrets on this. I really believe in Jalen Milroe, and apparently the Rams like him enough to meet with him. So that's been going around. The Rams have probably been the most connected team to him. The Giants, the Browns, of course, the Browns I believe they have Tommy Reese on their coaching staff, who coached Jalen Milroe in 2023, and he had a good year that year. Those are really the 3 teams I keep seeing connected to him. Could also see the Steelers. Seahawks had a top 30 visit with him. So what to make of Jalen Milroe here? Well, as far as the reasons to draft from the Rams' perspective, he's electric. He offers speed that is among the upper echelon at the quarterback position. The moment he enters the NFL, he's got elite arm strength, which is something I think the Rams you might not realize it, but once Matthew Stafford is out the door, the Rams are going to be missing that arm. Stafford completes throws that just other quarterbacks don't make. Like Jared Goff, Mark Bulger, I don't care. They're not making those throws. Sam Bradford, no. Nick Foles, no. Case Keenum, no. So Stafford has opened up the door for us to see some throws that, quite honestly, not many quarterbacks are able to make. So the idea that Jalen Milroe has an elite arm, well, that could be something, when you're missing Stafford's arm, that could feel pretty good to have somebody like that in your back pocket. He's a workhorse, high character guy. Coaches and teammates love him. Assumed to be heavily coachable from what I've been reading. And, he has the highest upside in this quarterback class by far. The timeline adds up since he's not ready, and I don't think he'll be ready after this season. So he's about 2 years away. So he's not ready. So timeline adds up in the sense he can be the guy of the future, doesn't put any pressure on Stafford now. But in addition to that, he can also help you now, which is something that I don't know if any of these other quarterbacks can say. We've seen Taysom Hill. We saw Trey Lance, although not a great example. But we've seen quarterbacks be used in sub-packages. Jalen Hurts, right? We saw that before he became the starter and Carson Wentz was in front of him. Jalen Hurts would come in sub-packages. This is the type of player that allows the Rams to add essentially a weapon in 2025 if he's not the quarterback and he's not going to be starting over Stafford. So he could actually help you with that dynamism and his ability to make plays with his legs. So a lot there to unpack and a lot there to process, but really there's a lot of good heading in the direction of Jalen Milroe. But why would the Rams not draft him? Well, he doesn't have pinpoint accuracy for starters. And again, if Sean McVay is going to deal with developing a young quarterback, I don't think he wants all sorts of accuracy issues and guys that just throw all over the place. He's generally accurate, not pinpoint accurate. He's got really small hands. He had 29 fumbles in 3 seasons. He misses the layup throws. Now, he does a really nice job in the intermediate and deep game, but he does miss the easy throws, which there's a lot of easy throws in Sean McVay's offense because that sets up the next play and the next play. So that is something to keep in mind. He does bail from clean pockets, although not on the frequency that a lot of people believe. I don't know if he's a great fit for McVay's offense currently. I would believe McVay would have to tinker with his offense, so there's that. And he doesn't have the timing, and he doesn't throw with anticipation consistently like the Shedeur Sanders, thing that I was just talking about. And this last one, he also might not be there. The way this stock's rising right now for Jalen Milroe, let's just face it. There's a chance he's not there at 26. 21, you got the Steelers. You got the Seahawks and the teens who met with him, right? The Giants could trade up to 24 with the Vikings. The Browns could do that. So there are teams that could trade up in front of the Rams, and I do have a feeling that could be the case. And we don't know how the Rams truly feel about Milroe. There's just buzz out there. Like Todd McShay mentioned, who he had the Giants trading up to 24 because he felt the Rams would take him at 26. So those are the things that could lead them not to draft Jalen Milroe. Number 3 on this list for quarterback is Jaxson Dart, a highly productive quarterback, very highly productive, led the FBS in vertical passing. He's a leader, improved every single year in college. He throws a good ball, has a good body for the quarterback position. He fits the timeline, like I mentioned, seeing as he's not ready to start. He's not going to put pressure. The media isn't going to put pressure to start him over Matthew Stafford. So he would need to sit. This is probably one of the better situations for him, just like I believe this is one of the better situations for Milroe. The ceiling is decently high. He's a tough quarterback who has good escapability. That's a lot of good, right? Here's why they might not draft him, or they wouldn't draft him. He wasn't asked to do a ton in Lane Kiffin's offense. Very limited. Full field progressions were very limited. The reads were very limited. He doesn't keep his eyes downfield, so he's a mobile quarterback that drops his eyes and becomes a runner and doesn't really utilize, and this is a big thing that I've said, doesn't really utilize the legs and the eye marriage. Because like when you have the legs and eyes down, you can really be dangerous. That's what actually makes Milroe so fascinating, because when he goes out on the move, he's not looking down. He's not already, confirming he's a runner. He keeps his eyes downfield. He can have the pump fake and throw it over the top. Like, when you watch Dart, he doesn't have that. So that's something there. In addition to that, he's not a greatly accurate deep ball thrower. Holds on the ball way too long. He has some injuries in his past that I think are, for whatever reason, not being talked about nearly enough, but are concerning. A torn meniscus, MCL sprain, and a torn UCL. He doesn't have a great deal of arm strength. He's very limited experience-wise under center, with really all of his under center experience coming when he was at the Senior Bowl. He has a disconnected throwing motion where his legs, he doesn't really step into his throws. He doesn't drive the ball. It's really all arm, and it's not great. So that needs to be figured out. And stop me if you heard this one before. He also might not be there. Like, this guy could be gone. He could be gone at 9. I wouldn't be surprised if Kellen Moore liked him more than Shedeur Sanders. Wouldn't at all. Would not shock me. So I more believe it when I see it when it comes to Jaxson Dart, whether he gets drafted in the first or not, but he might not be there. So that would be a reason why the Rams wouldn't draft him. Number 4 is Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord. Why would the Rams draft him? Well, mentally and physically, he's tough as hell. He's a leader. He has good arm talent. He has good ball placement. He throws with timing, anticipation. I think he fits McVay's offense very well. He plays a very similar play style to 2 quarterbacks he's coached. One he's currently coaching, and one he previously coached. Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo were my player comparisons there. He fits the timeline because you can sit him until Stafford retires. And this is a guy that, you talk about we not me, right? You talk about, culture, big culture guy, right? Sean McVay is. This is somebody that basically was pushed out of Ohio State. Now, he was well liked, by the way. And then he goes to Syracuse. He pretty much breaks all the records. And then he integrates himself so well where he becomes this beloved player in their history. And the coach loves him, and the players love him. That's something that matters. Why would the Rams not draft Kyle McCord? Well, if McVay wants a more modern athlete for the position, McCord is not that. He isn't great in that area. He doesn't make guys miss. He is really limited mobility-wise. He isn't the best off script because of that. He turns over the ball a ton, which is another thing. He holds on to the ball too long, and he makes pretty much those half-field reads. He doesn't, make full-field progressions. He doesn't go through full-field progressions, half-field mainly. So that's something to keep in mind. So really, McCord doesn't have a lot to not draft him for, but there's enough there where you could say, okay, yeah. But he is going to be a later pick, not necessarily first or second or third round, but could be maybe a fourth round pick. Who knows? I'm not really sure where McCord's going to go, but that's what I have there. Number 5 is Tyler Shuck from Louisville. Why would the Rams draft him? Well, he's got great body composition for the position. He can make all the throws. He's very experienced. He's a good athlete, and he has the capability to start in the NFL. But there's a lot of reasons why the Rams wouldn't draft him. He's one of the oldest prospects, meaning he will be looking at being either 27 or 28 by the time he takes over for Stafford, assuming he did. He has 3 major injuries on his resume. Major. He had a broken collarbone twice and had a broken fibula in his leg. So that's something to keep in mind. He only had 1 full starting season under his belt. He's a 26-year-old rookie this year, keep in mind. So the ceiling is in question because, yeah, he had a really good year at Louisville, but it took him so long to get to this. And yes, the injuries affected him, but I'm seeing he's a little bit better than some of these guys, and it took him this long. When I can get some of those guys that are 2 or 3 years younger, that's my gripe here. So ceiling is in question. The timeline isn't there because you'd be looking at a guy who, again, is going to be maybe even, 28, 29. And I just don't know if that makes a lot of sense for the Rams to have this guy sit and start. So I think it's a limited ceiling, high floor. This guy can play right away. I do believe that, but I just don't see. I see him ending up as like a Josh McCown, Gardner Minshew, one of those guys that just kind of gets to the point where he's a hired gun, can be that backup, can be that spot starter. That's kind of what I see out of Tyler Shuck for the long haul. But I think in the short term, he can start in a pinch and might honestly be the best option for the Saints, considering, Derek Carr is potentially done for the year. Quite honestly, I think a lot of people just think they should tank and get the number 1 overall pick and draft Arch Manning next year. But anyway, we move on. Dillon Gabriel, Oregon, number 6 on my board here. He's got a quick release. The reason why the Rams would draft him: quick release, heavily experienced player, poised in the pocket, can make full progressions. He's mentally and physically tough. He has escapability. He provides a very above average deep ball, and he's highly productive. But why wouldn't the Rams want Dillon Gabriel? The ceiling is in question. He is an older 25-year-old quarterback. Timeline is in question because he'll be getting up there in age when he gets a chance to start. He's not a prototypical build at quarterback, doesn't have a great arm. Because I mentioned the deep ball, yes, but he doesn't have like a strong arm, right? Doesn't have a ton of zip on it. And he doesn't have great mechanics. And so I look at this guy, not only is he 25 right out the box, but is this a guy that you think can start someday? I have a weird feeling about Dillon Gabriel. I do, but I don't know what the weird feeling is. Like, is he going to go and end up, being Case Keenum and winning playoff games randomly? Or like, is he going to be a franchise quarterback? I would lean towards probably the first one. I think he probably ends up being like Case Keenum. But I like the player, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams ended up drafting him. I would just probably say, yeah, there's definitely a lot there not to like as far as drafting him. But he would be a later pick. You're not getting Dillon Gabriel. You're not having to spend a second or a third or anything like that. Riley Leonard from Notre Dame comes in at 7 for me. He's a dual threat, highly productive quarterback that is tough, can make go through his progressions, put some zip on the football. He has consistency in his throwing mechanics, and he climbs the pocket with confidence. And he's a culture guy. Audience, the players, the coaches, they like him. They liked him at Duke before he transferred. Great body composition, 22 years of age, fits the Rams sit and start timeline if the Rams feel he can. But why would they not draft him? He didn't throw the deep ball much at all. They did not really focus on that. I think a lot of it has to do with Notre Dame, for whatever reason, didn't quite have the same receivers they've had in the past. I mean, when you think about Notre Dame receivers, you think that they're pretty loaded. They didn't really have anybody that would tell you that they were loaded. And so as far as the deep ball, that was not on full display. And while Sean McVay does operate, he likes to operate in the short and intermediate game and work his way to the deep ball, he does like airing the thing out. And if Riley Leonard can't do that or wasn't asked to do that consistently to the point where he's that far behind, I don't know if that's a great fit. He's way too welcoming to take on big hits. That's one thing, looking back at Milroe, who likes to run, he's good at getting out of bounds. He's good at sliding. He's good at not taking unnecessary hits. He's durable. He doesn't get hurt. With Riley Leonard, this is somebody that, he has had some issues staying healthy, and it's because of his erratic play style. Like I said, highly productive, but he's a dual threat. And when he takes off and runs, he's not thinking about the next play. He's thinking about that play. He's not thinking about how do I live to play another down. He's thinking about dying on the field to win that play. And that is not sustainable in the NFL. RG3, Colin Kaepernick, I could go on. So, in addition to that, he had tightrope surgery, the Cooper Kupp surgery, twice on his ankle, not ideal. I don't know about the McVay fit in the offense because of the lack of deep ball trust I have in him. And I'm unsure about, the timing, like the throws and all that. He's, like I said, he's got some good stuff, but I don't see anticipatory throws. I see a point and shoot type of guy. So I don't know. He might work best in just an RPO heavy offense. And I think McVay's next offense after Stafford will be similar. And I think he'll tinker, but you're talking about having to really change a lot of, what you do as a football team if you get a guy like Riley Leonard. I just don't think he fits this offense. And so for that reason, that's why I don't think the Rams would draft him. We move on to number 8, Curtis Rourke of Indiana. This is an interesting one to me. I like the tape. I like the player. I'll get into it, but there's a lot here, okay? So first off, why the Rams would draft him. Great body composition, strong arm, tough as anyone, in my opinion, ever. Like Matthew Stafford would really appreciate his toughness. He played through a torn ACL the entirety of 2024. Yes, with a giant, I mean, you could see it from a mile away, brace on his knee. The entire 2024 campaign. He's aggressive. He's heavily respected by his coaches and teammates. Smart, makes pre-snap adjustments. I like watching him. That said, there's a lot not to like, and why there's a lot that I believe the Rams would not invest in him, and here's why. The timeline fit's very questionable. He'll be 25 his rookie year. He didn't go through many progressions in college. He had fumbling issues. He has tons of durability concerns, as sad as that is. Like I said, he played on a torn ACL the whole year, which that's toughness. But as far as durable, well, what is durable? Durable is not just getting injured and staying on the field and playing through the injury. Durable is, can you actually keep yourself together without getting, do you get injured a lot? And he does. So he is not very durable. This is somebody that has torn his ACL twice. And there's other injuries there that, among other injuries. He played a whole season on his second ACL tear. So that was his second already. And he underwent surgery in January. So he just seems like an unlikely fit because he's going to be a redshirt this year, which at that point, You could be talking about him not playing until year 4 of his contract, the last year of his contract. And that's if the Rams even view him as a starter, which, to be honest with you, I like Curtis Rourke, but I don't think a lot of teams are going to view him as a potential starter down the road, especially with all those injuries. So for that reason, yeah, I have all those reasons as to why the Rams wouldn't draft him. Number 9 is Will Howard of Ohio State. This is a player that probably gets brought up as much as anybody on the YouTube. Will Howard. Why would the Rams draft him? Great body composition. Big, strong, all that. He's got a strong arm, above average athleticism, played under center, tough player mentally and physically. He improved in a big way this past season. Pretty accurate college passer. I say college passer because I don't know if that translates to the NFL. Teammates love him. Coaches praise him. Obviously, you guys probably saw the John Gruden stuff with him. He absolutely loves Will Howard. You can tell. He fits the Rams offense, I think, now after his exposure in the Ohio State offense. If he just came from Kansas State, I watched this guy for years in the Big 12. I do not think he would have been a fit for the Rams at Kansas State. Very much a gimmicky player, but he goes to Ohio State, and now he starts to really learn how to truly play the quarterback position. He wins a national title his first year in that offense, made some big-time plays in the red area, really did a nice job of keeping care of the football. He will be 24 his rookie year, which I believe fits the timeline of a sit and start player. So that's what I have there as to why the Rams would draft him. Also, this isn't going to be a first or second, maybe it's a third rounder, but it's not going to be a super high pick. So that's another reason why they could draft him as well. So why wouldn't they draft him? Well, first off, the mechanics are not great. Not great. He's got a strong arm, but like NFL strong remains to be seen, as I mentioned. Doesn't throw with much anticipation. This guy is petrified to throw in the middle of the field. He really struggled going through his progressions. Ohio State really schemed around his weaknesses to protect him from making mistakes. And he played with arguably the best offense in the country. So, I mean, think about it. You're throwing to Ibuka. You're throwing to Jeremiah Smith, who's going to be a superstar someday, or he already is. He'll be a number 1 overall pick or a top 5 or top 10 pick. And then, oh, by the way, your running backs, right? Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. So there's a lot there. You had a really good offensive line. I don't like to hold that against players, but it is fair to mention why, maybe his statistical output was a lot higher than some of the other quarterbacks. So I think he has questionable long-term ceiling as a starter in the NFL. He has traits. He has tools. He seems like a hard-working dude, but there's a lot there why the Rams wouldn't draft him. And if he goes high enough, well, there you go. I don't see them picking him in, say, the 3rd round. I think if they picked him, it would be on day 3. So next up, and we only have 2 more here, I had put 11 in there. I didn't want to go any further down. These are kind of the 11 that I could really see one way or another. So number 10 is Brady Cook from Mizzou. And, I understand not a lot of people are super high on this guy. Plus, I did say that, he did hold back the production of Luther Burden this past year. But his 2023 tape was actually pretty good. So I don't know what happened to him. He's got a good body for the quarterback position, great athleticism, ran the 4.5s, had a crazy 37-inch vert. He has a good throwing motion, allows him to get the ball out quickly, has enough to be considered a long-term project, would not cost a high pick. So those are the reasons why the Rams would draft him. And here's why the Rams wouldn't draft Brady Cook. He stares down his receivers. He doesn't make great decisions. He doesn't do the little things such as looking off a safety. He offers no eye manipulation whatsoever. Footwork just is not great. Not an overly accurate thrower of the football. And he heavily regressed from 2023 to 2024. Was that an offensive scheme thing? Maybe. The point being, there's a lot there. And the timeline doesn't really matter because if you're drafting Brady Cook here, I don't really see Brady Cook as a guy that, after further review, because I liked him initially, when I really dove into the tape, I just kind of felt like this wasn't really somebody that could ever be a franchise quarterback. This is somebody that might be your QB3 on a roster, and he might be a QB2, but that is his ceiling, in my opinion. I don't see him ever being a starter in this league, so there, I have that. And then 11 is Quinn Ewers, who is one of the more frustrating quarterbacks I've ever watched, because Quinn Ewers out of Texas, here's why I think the Rams could draft him. This guy has a good body for the quarterback position. Of course, understand when I mean good, when I say good body, what I mean is at quarterback, you don't want a guy that's a toothpick. You want a guy that's filled out, can take some hits, because it is a demanding position. You do take a lot of hits despite what people think, but also it's a good enough body where you can move around. You can throw where like your body's not getting in the way of your arm, all of that. So good body for the quarterback position. You got the Texas connection there. As we've talked about, the Rams are heavily connected to Texas. He has a quick, compact release, which is good. Get the ball out quickly. He has games where he looks like an absolute draft gem, but and I'll say that right now. He has some games where you're like, wow, that was really impressive. He throws with upside to hit any target on the field. He's got good mobility. He has big-time performances in true road games against the Alabamas and the Michigans. He doesn't let the moment get too big for him. Ewers, if he proves he can play at the next level with consistency, and that's a big thing here with Ewers, he fits the timeline of a sit-and-start quarterback, and he fits McVay's offense with the traits he possesses. So why won't the Rams draft him? Inconsistency. He's just not consistent. Ewers has all the tools, but he turns the ball over way too much. It's going to drive Sean McVay insane. He also has been injury prone in his career. He always has those nagging soft tissue injuries that one could argue has hurt his development to a degree. He doesn't display consistent ball placement, horrendous decision making. Ewers is incredibly frustrating, like I mentioned, because of all those things, because you watch him and one game he might look amazing. The next you're like, what the hell am I looking at? He has some serious inconsistencies. He needs time to sit. And while he fits the Rams timeline, I personally don't believe he is a future NFL starter. I think really he's going to need a lot of work. Like I said, he's got all the tools, but how many times have we said this guy's got all the tools, but he lacks consistency? Consistency is what makes you go from a bad player to an average player. You go from an average player to a good player to a great player to an elite player. Consistency. You have to have it. And when I watch Quinn Ewers, the first thing I think is, wow, Matthew Golden, he's going to lose a lot of money being in that offense. That's how I felt. It was like Matthew Golden had so many yards that were left on the field because of poor throws. But again, Ewers has some games where you're like, okay, there's a reason why he was on the cover of, he was one of the cover athletes of the NCAA football game. There's a reason why at one point he was being mocked in the first round. There's reasons for these. But anyway, I have no idea where he's going to go in the draft. I've seen him mocked. I've seen him listed as the 5th best quarterback on people's boards. I've seen him listed where I have him as the 12th, 11th on this, because we're not counting Cam Ward. That's a waste of time. But I have him at 12th. And that's how I feel. So, in conclusion, I think every one of the quarterbacks I mentioned could be drafted by the Rams. I think every one of the quarterbacks I mentioned might not be drafted by the Rams, right? They could be completely off the Rams board for different reasons. I'll just say this. The Rams, in all likelihood, are looking for a quarterback that is going to be easier to develop, but also I have to know what I'm working with. Like, if you have inconsistency issues out the wazoo and there's nothing I can do to help you, it's all mental, I don't know what to do. If you have, that's the thing. Prospects by nature naturally are going to come with flaws, with weaknesses, with cons. but are they fixable? And that's the thing. At the end of the day, I really think there are players like Jalen Milroe where you look at, and there are people that act like a lot of the things he struggles with are just insurmountable. They are a death sentence. But that is not at all true. Not at all true. And I think the problem with Milroe is people are looking at the recent example of Anthony Richardson saying, I've seen this guy before, and I don't think he's going to work out. He's not as big. Like, I don't think he's going to work out. I think he's a different type of player, truthfully. That's just me. But, yeah, I think a lot of these guys have issues. Some you can overcome, some you can't. I think the injuries are a really big concern. I think the big thing for the Rams to focus on when looking for a Matthew Stafford successor, and who's to say they even draft one? They might not even draft anybody on this list. This might be the most pointless video ever. Or you might come back to this video and say, wow, Jake, you were right on. Either way, my point being, if the Rams do choose to go with a successor for Matthew Stafford, they have to find a guy that can actually be a successor to Matthew Stafford. Finding just anybody and saying, they'll sit for 2 years, it's not really going to do much. You have to find the guy that makes sense for you. And if you spend a high pick on a guy that has to sit for 2 years and you don't even feel like is a good fit, well, there you go. Now you've really put yourself in a bad spot. I don't see the Rams just willy-nilly going to draft anybody. I think they're only going to draft somebody that makes sense with potential starting upside for the future. For that reason, if I had to predict anybody, I think it's Kyle McCord if it is a day 3, late day 2 pick, or I think it is Jalen Milroe, and they either pick him at 26 or they move down and they pick him at the end of the first round, or they get lucky and they find out, okay, yeah, the Browns, they're not going to take him. The Giants don't take him, and they get him, trade down. They get him in the second round. But I do feel if they pick a guy early on, it's Milroe. I don't think it's going to be Sanders. I don't think he gets there, and I don't think Jaxson Dart's going to get there now. And I also think that they would prefer Milroe. But in addition to that, I also would say that if they don't go that direction, but they want to add somebody that might fit their offense and all of that, Kyle McCord, because while Tyler Shuck, I think, fits the offense, Tyler Shuck is a lot older than everybody else. So I think McCord, I would say a dark horse here would be Will Howard. I could see them liking Will Howard. Mainly they've showed interest in, players that have been on championship teams, plus Sean McVay, John Gruden. I'm sure they still talk. They've had a connection. John Gruden, I could see him really kind of nudging Sean about Will Howard. But Quinn Ewers, I guess, is kind of that last thing where I'm like, I could still see it. Even though he has so many issues, I still could see that Texas connection. They get him, and then I don't know. But like I said, my money would be on day 2, Kyle McCord. I'll just put it in order. Kyle McCord, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, and I'd probably say I'll probably go Dylan Gabriel and Quinn Ewers. I don't think they draft Curtis Rourke. I think this team, while they've taken opportunities to buy low on guys that have been injured, I do not think they touch Curtis Rourke's injuries. I just don't. I don't think they touch Tyler Shuck's injuries. And to be honest with you, that's actually a big reason why I don't think they go after Quinn Ewers. So, yeah, I guess the 3 biggest names to look out for if you're the Rams, and I could see Dylan Gabriel, but I think the 3 biggest names when I really think about it, if, Jaxson Dart is going to go earlier and Sanders is going to go earlier, I think it's Milroe, McCord, and Will Howard. I do. And I'm not high on Will Howard. I'm not I don't dislike him. I don't think he's terrible. To me, Milroe is the guy that I would go after of those quarterbacks. But it's going to be interesting. It is going to be very interesting. So there it is. Quarterback Rams-centric video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I did basically give you my quarterback rankings, and if you want the rest of them, at number 13, Seth Hennigan from Memphis. At number 14, Taylor Elgersma from Laurier. At number 15, Graham Mertz from Florida. 16, Donovan Smith from Houston. And 17, Cam Miller from North Dakota State. I am not watching another quarterback. I can't do it. I watched 17, and that is my ranking. So, of course, Cam Ward was number 1, but I've already said that many times. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys take care. Later, folks. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the nine. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.